If you've ever been cheated on, you know the moment your body figures it out before your brain does. Mine happened when I got a notification on my phone that said his AirPods were at a hotel while he was texting me, "Goodnight, babe, from home." And no, this wasn't some innocent mistake. This was planned. Because he didn't just cheat. He tried to turn my own trust into his alibi. Here's what happened. My boyfriend, let's call him Ethan, was the kind of guy who loved looking like the perfect partner in public. He'd post a couple photos. He'd open doors. He'd say the right things. But in private, he had this one habit that always made me feel small. He'd forget things. Not in a cute way. In a way that forced me to clean up his life. His hoodie on my couch. His charger in my car. His keys somewhere in my purse. He'd laugh and say, "You're basically my second brain." At first, I thought it was intimacy. Like we were merging lives. But now I realize he was training me. Training me to be the person who always had his stuff. So if he ever got caught, he could say, "See? My things are with her. I was with her." The night it started, he came over after work acting unusually sweet. Too sweet. The kind of sweet that feels like perfume sprayed over a smell you don't want anyone to notice. He hugged me longer than normal, kissed my forehead, asked about my day like he was auditioning for a role. Then he pulled me onto the couch and said, "I'm exhausted. I might crash early." He never crashes early. Ethan lives on late-night energy. Just one more episode. Just one more game. So when he said he was going to sleep early, my brain didn't celebrate. It blinked. He fell asleep fast too. Suspiciously fast. And at around midnight, he woke up, suddenly like he forgot something. He patted his pockets, looked down at the floor and said, "No way. I left my AirPods case here again." Again. He always lost that case. He said, "Can I just grab it tomorrow? I'm too tired." I shrugged. "Sure." He smiled, kissed my cheek, and went back to sleep. But I didn't fall asleep. Because I heard a buzz. Not from my phone. From his. A small vibration under the couch cushion. I froze. I wasn't the type who checked phones. I hated that stereotype. Crazy girlfriend. But the vibration happened again. And again. Like someone was urgently trying to get his attention. Ethan didn't move. Like he was pretending to sleep. My heart started punching my ribs. I looked down. The screen lit up just enough to show the top of a notification. I didn't even see a name. I saw an emoji. A cherry. And underneath it, one word. "Tonight." My throat went dry. I didn't touch his phone. I didn't wake him. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to my own thoughts turn sharp. In the morning he acted normal. Made coffee. Called me baby. Talked about work. And then, like it was a casual afterthought, he said, "I'm gonna head home later. I've got an early meeting." I said, "Okay." He leaned down, kissed me, and said, "Love you." And then he left his AirPods case on my kitchen counter. Right where he wanted it. Because the second he walked out, I saw it differently. Not a forgotten object. A planted object. A marker. An alibi. That afternoon, something happened that felt like the universe throwing me a knife and saying, "Here. Cut the lie open." My iPhone buzzed with a notification I'd never gotten before. AirPods detected near you. At first I thought it was because his case was still in my apartment. But then I read the second line. "These AirPods have been moving with you." Moving with me? I stared at it like it was an accusation. My stomach flipped. Because I wasn't moving with his AirPods. I was at home. Alone. And then I remembered, when he lost his case, he once asked me to help him find it using Find My. He had connected his AirPods to his Apple ID, but at some point, while we were together, he'd also made me trust it on his devices. I didn't fully understand it at the time. I just clicked what he told me to click. Because that's what trust looks like when it's being used against you. I opened Find My, and there they were. Not the case on my counter. The actual AirPods. With a live location. Across town. At a place I recognized immediately. Because I'd been there once for a friend's birthday. A boutique hotel. My hands went ice cold. I refreshed the map. The dot stayed. I refreshed again. Still there. And that's when the rage hit me. So hard it felt clean. Not messy heartbreak. Clean anger. Because it wasn't just cheating. It was the fact that he was texting me like he was home, while his AirPods were literally sitting in a hotel room. So I did not cry. I did not call him. I did not text him, "Where are you?" I did something smarter. I waited. I watched. Because cheaters rely on panic. They want you emotional, so they can control the conversation. I wanted data. Proof. A timeline. For the next hour, I checked the map like it was a heartbeat monitor. The AirPods stayed at the hotel. Then, finally, the dot moved. Slowly. like someone walking down a hallway. Then it stopped. In the parking lot. Then it moved again down the street. And then it hit me. He wasn't just cheating. He was moving like he knew exactly what he was doing. Like it wasn't a spontaneous mistake. It was a routine. My phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Hey babe. Meeting ran long. I'm gonna crash early. Talk tomorrow, red heart. Crash early. Again. I stared at the message and laughed out loud. Not because it was funny. Because it was insulting. His AirPods were still moving. And they were moving toward a neighborhood I also recognized. A neighborhood where my friend Maya used to live. I zoomed in. The dot stopped. On a residential street. My pulse went so loud I could hear it in my ears. I told myself, don't do anything dumb. So I didn't drive there. Instead, I did something even more surgical. I opened my messages with Ethan and searched one word. AirPods. Dozens of texts popped up. All his little, oops I forgot them again messages. All his jokes about me being his second brain. And suddenly it clicked. This wasn't carelessness. This was strategy. If he left his case with me, he could always say he was with me. If anyone ever questioned where he was, he could point to his stuff being in my apartment. But what he didn't count on was the one thing that kills every lie. Technology logging the truth automatically. That night I barely slept. I kept seeing that dot on the map like it was burning into my eyes. The next morning, he showed up at my door with the same fake softness. He kissed my cheek and said, "Morning." Then he looked around like he was checking something. "Did you find my AirPods case?" he asked casually. I said, "Yeah, it's right there." I pointed to the counter. He smiled like he was relieved. Because in his head, he was probably thinking, perfect. My case is here. My girlfriend is calm. I'm safe. He went to grab it. And right before his hand touched it, I said, "Where were your AirPods last night?" His hand froze midair. The air changed. His eyes flicked up to mine. "What?" he said too quickly. I kept my voice flat. "Your AirPods. Where were they?" He laughed like I was being silly. "Here? I told you I left them." I nodded slowly. "You left the case here." He blinked. I watched his brain scramble. Because cheaters are good at stories, but they're not good at details when you corner them with facts. I said, "Your AirPods were at a hotel." His face did something I will never forget. For half a second, his expression went empty. Like a mask slipped. And then it snapped back. "That's impossible," he said. "You must have looked wrong." I smiled. Not sweetly. Cold. "No," I said. "I watched them move. I watched them leave the hotel. I watched them go to a house on Brookline Street." He swallowed. I could literally see his throat move. He tried to turn it into anger. "Why are you tracking my AirPods?" he snapped, like I was the problem. And that's when I knew I had him. Because innocent people don't go defensive first. They go confused. They go curious. They go, "Wait, what?" He went straight to attack. So I let him talk. I let him build his own rope. He said I was paranoid. He said it was creepy. He said I was looking for problems. And then he said, I was home. Ask my roommate. Roommate. He'd never mentioned a roommate. Not once. We'd been together long enough that I would have known. So I leaned back and said, "What's your roommate's name?" He paused. A long pause. Then, "Kyle. Kyle." I nodded again. And then I pulled out my phone and said, "Okay, I'm going to play a sound on your AirPods." His eyes widened. Because he knew what that meant. If the AirPods were in his pocket, the sound would play. If the AirPods were somewhere else, the sound would still play. And he would have to watch me prove he wasn't where he said he was. I tapped the button. Play sound. We stood in my kitchen in total silence. For 3 seconds. Nothing. And then, faintly, through the open hallway window. I heard it. A tiny chirping sound. Not in my apartment. Not in his pocket. Outside. Somewhere far enough that it wasn't here, but close enough to be real. His face went pale. He whispered, "Stop." I said, "Where are they, Ethan?" He didn't answer. I said, "Who is she?" He still didn't answer. And then his phone buzzed. Right on cue. A message popped up on his screen. From the cherry emoji. "Did she believe you?" My stomach flipped again. But my voice stayed calm. I reached out, not to grab his phone, just to tilt it so he couldn't hide it. He snatched it away too fast. And I said, "So she knows about me." Silence. And then he did the most disgusting thing. He tried to minimize it. "It's not like that," he said. "It's just complicated. Complicated." I laughed again. "Complicated as taxes," I said. "This is betrayal." He started talking fast now, words spilling like a leak. He said she was going through a hard time. He said he was just helping. He said it only happened once. I looked at him and said, "Your AirPods have a travel history, Ethan." That shut him up, because he realized I wasn't guessing. I had receipts, not screenshots he could claim were edited, not rumors, location logs, movement, time, truth, recorded by a device that doesn't care about his excuses. He sat down at my kitchen table like he suddenly felt heavy. And for a moment, he looked small. But I didn't feel sorry, because the second you weaponize someone's trust, you don't deserve softness. I said, "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell me the truth. One time. No story." He whispered, "Okay." And then I asked the question that would decide how brutal this got. "How long?" He stared at the table. Then, quietly, 3 months. 3 months. My hands shook, but I kept them under the table, so he wouldn't see. I asked, "Where?" He answered, "Hotels. Her place. Sometimes my car." I asked, "How many times?" He didn't answer, and I realized something. If I kept asking, I would poison myself with details. So I stopped. I stood up. He looked up, scared now. "Wait," he said. "Can we talk?" I said, "We're done." He reached for my wrist. I pulled back. And then I did the thing he never expected. I didn't scream. I didn't throw his stuff out dramatically. I went to my counter, picked up his AirPods case and held it out. He reached for it like it was comfort. And I said, "You can have this." Then I added, quietly, "But you're not taking anything else." I walked to the door and opened it. He stood there, frozen. And then he said the line every cheater says when they realize their control is gone. "You're really going to throw everything away over this?" Over this. Like this wasn't months of lies. Like this wasn't him using my home as a prop in his double life. I stared at him and said, "No, Ethan. You threw it away. I'm just taking the trash out." He left. But here's the twist. He didn't just leave and disappear. Because men like him don't accept consequences quietly. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. "You don't know the full story." Then another. "Ethan loves you." Then a third. "If you ruin his life, I'll ruin yours." My blood went cold. Because that wasn't him. That was her. The cherry emoji. She had my number, which meant he gave it to her. Or she got it from his phone while he was sleeping. Either way, that told me everything. This wasn't an accident. This was a team. So I did one last thing, something that protected me and also ended the game. I took screenshots of the messages. I took screenshots of the AirPods location history. I wrote down dates and times. And I sent one calm text back. "Do not contact me again. I have proof. If you continue, I will report harassment." No emotion. No begging. No argument. Just consequence. And then I blocked every number. I changed my locks. I told my building manager. I told my friends. Because cheaters thrive in silence. They live in the gaps between what you know and what you're afraid to say. And the most savage thing you can do to someone who lives on lies is make everything clear. Now, when I think about it, the part that still makes my skin crawl isn't the hotel. It's the planning. Leaving the case at my place. Building an alibi. Trying to make me feel crazy. Because that's not just cheating. That's manipulation. That's someone practicing control. So if you're watching this, and you've ever had that gut feeling, listen to it. Not because your gut is dramatic, but because your gut notices patterns before your heart is ready to accept them. And here's my question. If your partner, accidentally, kept leaving things at your place, would you see it as love? Or would you recognize it as a strategy? Because now I know the difference. And I'll never ignore it again.